Prequel, The Last Station, year 1943. Klaus Richter adjusted his coat as the train stopped at Canfranc station. Around him the snow fell silently, covering the tracks like a white shroud. He knew he was being followed. The suitcase in his hand contained enough evidence to condemn powerful men: names, dates, reports of atrocious experiments. He thought that in Spain he might be safe, that crossing the border would allow his testimony to reach the resistance. He was wrong. He felt the pressure of a revolver against his back before he could react. "I'm sorry, comrade," whispered a voice in German. The gunshot echoed between the empty train cars. He fell to his knees. His breath, a white mist in the freezing air, was the last thing he saw before darkness consumed him. The orders were clear: no trace should remain. But some secrets cannot be buried. The man in the gray uniform, Canfranc Station, nestled between the Pyrenees like a forgotten colossus, was a labyrinth of twisted iron and stone worn down by time. During the day, the sunlight filtered through the clouds, revealing its withered splendor. Broken windows reflecting a leaden sky, clocks frozen at hours that no longer mattered, and empty hallways where the echoes of old footsteps seemed trapped within the walls. But at night, when the shadows stretched like skeletal fingers, the station awakened. The wind, turned into a chorus of wails, slipped through the cracks in the walls, carrying stories no one dared to tell. Ramon Ortega knew every corner of that place. 12 years of working night maintenance had taught him to distinguish normal sounds from those that weren't. The creak of a beam under the weight of the snow, the tap of a loose cable against metal. But that November night was different. The air, charged with static electricity, made his skin prickle. Even the rats, usually bold, had retreated to their burrows. He adjusted his flashlight on his belt and began his round. The dim, flickering emergency lights cast grotesque silhouettes on the walls. He knew the station had a reputation. Occasionally, local newspapers published sensationalist articles about paranormal activity, but he had always dismissed them. Nonsense to sell papers, he thought, until now. As he inspected the central platform, a sound made him stop. A sharp screech, like the drag of a chain, emerged from the darkness. Ramon held his breath. His flashlight cast a wavering circle of light ahead, revealing only dust swirling in the air. "Is someone there?" he asked firmly. No one answered. But in the silence that followed, he felt a shift. The cold deepened, biting his knuckles through his gloves. A pungent smell, a mix of rancid oil and damp earth, filled his nostrils. Something was watching him from the shadows. Something that didn't belong to this world. He quickened his pace, determined to finish his shift. But as he turned the corner toward the secondary storage rooms, his flashlight flickered and went out. He cursed under his breath, hitting it against his palm. When the light returned, trembling, it illuminated a tall, slender figure at the end of the hallway. It was humanoid, but wrong. Its outlines vibrated, as if made of smoke, and its silhouette melted into the darkness. Ramon stepped back, stumbling over a loose cable. When he got up, the figure was gone. Only a whisper in German, freezing his blood, remained in the air. "Verloren." Past midnight, Ramon was adjusting an old train car, left there as decoration for tourists. The air smelled of burnt oil and damp earth. He was about to leave when a metallic screech made him turn, flashlight in hand. And then he saw it. A man in a gray uniform, motionless between two train cars. The clothing was outdated, the color of ash, with worn insignias on the shoulders. His face remained in shadow, but his eyes, God, his eyes, they shone like ice under the flashlight beam. Empty, deep, like holes dug into a skull. Ramon froze. "Who's there?" His voice sounded fragile. The figure didn't respond. It only tilted its head slowly, as if studying him. Then, like smoke scattered by the wind, it disappeared. In the air lingered an acrid scent of rusted metal and something else. Burnt flesh. Ramon ran to the spot, but there were no footprints, no traces, only silence, heavy as a tomb. The next morning, his co-workers laughed when he told them what had happened. "You're getting old, Ramon," one joked, patting his shoulder. "Or was it the ghost of the liquor you drank?" But Ramon couldn't forget those eyes. He decided to seek out Javier Montes, a historian obsessed with the station. He lived in a tiny apartment, walls covered with World War II maps and stacks of German documents. When Ramon described the figure, Javier paled. "Gray uniform," he murmured, pulling out a dusty folder. In 1943, a Nazi officer deserted. He brought documents that incriminated high-ranking officials, but he was betrayed by his own group. They executed him right here, in a train car. Ramon gasped. "Do you think he's still here?" Javier shut the folder abruptly. "I don't think. I know." 2 nights later, Ramon returned. He carried a portable camera and a cold determination. The wind howled louder, and the shadows seemed to stretch toward him. As he passed by the same train car, a shrill noise made him jump. It was him. Again, closer. The uniform was torn, with a bloody bullet hole in the right chest. The ghost's skeletal hand extended toward Ramon, as if pleading. "What do you want?" he whispered, his voice shaking. The wind carried the response. "Hilfemesh?" And then the figure vanished. On the ground, under the flashlight's flickering glow, something gleamed. A Nazi insignia, corroded by time with the initials KR and the year 1943. Ramon took the insignia to Javier, whose hands trembled as he touched it. "Klaus Richter," he whispered. That was his name. Together, they searched the train car where Klaus had died. Beneath loose floorboards, they found a cracked leather suitcase. Inside, yellowed papers with SS stamps, stained with dried blood. Reports on poison gas experiments. Tests on prisoners. Javier read in a hushed voice, his face pale. "He tried to expose this. That's why they killed him." That night, Ramon didn't hesitate. He burned the documents in a rusted barrel. The flames rose, and for a moment he saw a tall, thin figure watching him from afar. The scent of burnt oil faded with the smoke. Ramon never saw the man in the gray uniform again. But on the stillest nights, when the wind stops and the station holds its breath, he still hears footsteps echoing on the platforms and tracks. Sometimes he feels a cold breath on his neck, as if someone were watching him from the shadows. Javier published the surviving documents. Historians still debate what Klaus Richter truly intended. As for Canfranc Station, it still stands, a monument to war and secrets that never die. And if you ever visit at midnight, pay attention. The wind might carry more than the sound of ghost trains. It might carry a whisper in German. Danke. Epilogue: Footsteps in the Fog. Years later, Canfranc Station was restored. Tourists admired its ghostly grandeur, took pictures beside the old train cars, and marveled at its imposing architecture. Ramon no longer worked there. He had moved far away, to a quiet town where the wind didn't carry voices from the past. But some nights, for no reason, he would wake with the feeling that something was watching him from the corner of his room. Javier continued his research. Every trail he followed ended in silence, as if a shadow ensured the truth never surfaced. One evening, he found an old report on Canfranc Station. At the bottom of the page, someone had scribbled 2 words in faded ink: Verloren, Danke. The paper was cold to the touch. That night in the distance, the echo of footsteps resounded along the abandoned tracks. If you've made it this far, thank you. We will meet again in the shadows of fear.